Hi, we're back, and our next coin of the week takes us to a period of war and conquest, sieges and massacres, fear and sorrow. This enigmatic coin is a bullion or base silver jetal, the most popular type of coin used in medieval Central Asia and northern India in the 11th to early 13th centuries. This one is in the Islamic style of only inscriptions. It avoids using pictorial designs. Instead, we have in the obverse an Arabic legend in 3 lines reading Al-Nasir li-din Allah Amir al-Mu'minin. Al-Nasir, the conqueror in the faith of God, commander of the faithful. Now this is a reference to the Abbasid Caliph al-Nasir, who was the spiritual leader of the Muslim world from 1180 to his death in 1225. So perhaps this is a coin of al-Nasir, who by the way under protection of powerful Sultan Salah ad-Din, better known as Saladin, enjoyed not only spiritual but also some limited secular power, and who even struck some coins. Well, not so fast. In those years, nearly all secular rulers in Islam acknowledged the Abbasid Caliph as their spiritual leader. Even Salah ad-Din himself and his successors in Syria and Egypt, who regarded themselves as the secular rulers of all Islam, piously included the name of the Caliph in their coins. So was this coin struck by Salah ad-Din, his successors in Syria and Egypt, or perhaps by some other secular ruler who didn't pay allegiance to them, but still recognized Caliph al-Nasir as the spiritual leader? Well, not at all. If we look at the reverse, which also has an inscription in 3 lines, we read Al-Adil Kagan al-Azam. Adil is an Arabic word. It comes from adl, justice, so adil means the just. Al-Azam is also Arabic, and it means the very great or the supreme. So we may guess that the word in the middle is a name, but it is not. The word is Hagan, which is a word of very different origin. It is a Mongol word, a Mongol title, and a word that still makes your hair stand on end if you live in some Central Asian countries. It is the augmentative of the word Han, which means in Mongol chief, leader, commander, even king. So this word means great Han, great king, which as a title may not sound very impressive, but it is. Impressive and dreadful as the man behind the title. Do not expect to find his personal name in his coins, because he never used it. He was born as Temujin, but became known to his subjects, his enemies, to historians, and the world as Genghis Khan. From time immemorial, the Mongols lived in the steppes of their native land, together with other Altai peoples such as the early Turks and the Uyghurs. Life was hard, the pastures were scarce, and the Mongol clans lived in constant warfare. In winter, the average temperature is minus 26 degrees Celsius, and it may even drop to minus 54. The climate, the harsh conditions, and the constant war amongst the clans resulted in a process of natural selection. The weak died, only the best survived. However, the windswept plains of Mongolia are ideal for horses. A Mongol and his horse is like a centaur of mythology, like a single creature. They were also the best archers the world had seen and still are. So the Mongol clans lived for centuries in constant war. But in 1206, after decades of fighting, Temujin, the son of a minor chief, unified the tribes in a solemn shamanic ceremony of a nature we cannot even guess. The Guraldai, the council of all clans, and the witch doctors proclaimed proclaimed Temujin as GENGHIS Khan, Oceanic King, a title equivalent to King of the World. As the Mongols had never seen the ocean, they borrowed this word, Genghis, from the Turkish language. From that moment in history, Mongols started an expansion career that, in less than a century, resulted in the largest empire of continuous land mass the world had ever seen. The incredible mobility of Mongol armies, the shock tactics introduced by Genghis Khan, and the creepy extermination war he conducted made their attack irresistible. Of course, Mongols had never minted any coinage, and indeed, with the exception of some traveling Mongol merchants, they probably had never used it. Their horses were their only friends and only treasure. In contrast, the huge and prosperous Khwarezmian Empire, which was at the time the largest empire in Central Asia, minted an incredible variety of coins, from gold dinars and silver dirhams in the Western mints to a plethora of bullion jitals of various compositions, styles and types, from a large number of mints stretching from the west of modern Iran to the Hindu Kush and the Chinese Turkestan. This Khwarezmian Empire was mainly the creation of its ruler, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, the major winner of the disintegration of the Seljuk Empire, the first Turkish empire that once extended from Central Asia to Anatolia. Ala ad-Din, who we may call Aladdin for short, was a Turk with an empire centered in what is now Afghanistan, one of the richest and most highly civilized regions of the world at the time. The Khwarezmians were Persians by culture and Muslims by religion. Aladdin may thus have entered history as a new Alexander the Great, builder of a huge empire. However, he made a terrible mistake, and that's the reason why you probably had never heard of him and of his empire. In 1219, when Genghis was busy with the conquest of China, one of the border governors or viceroys of Aladdin arrested and executed some Mongol merchants in the city of Otrar under charge of espionage. Genghis sent a party to Khwarezm, Aladdin's capital, but the embassy was arrested, tortured, and the ambassador was executed by order of the Shah. To this followed the typical Mongol intimidating message ordering the unconditional surrender, which was also rejected. Now you may think that Aladdin was insane, but actually he may have some reasons to act so. Moreover, he had an army of 500,000, about twice the number of the entire Mongol horde, and better equipped and armed. But Genghis never left any occupation troops. Instead, he used to fix a huge tribute and moved to the next campaign with his full army with astonishing speed. With the first sun ray of spring, 1220, the entire Mongol horde crossed the Sir Darya River and invaded the empire, defeating their armies. Beginning with Otrar, the city where the Mongol merchants, probably spies, were executed and which was razed to the ground, one by one the prosperous cities of the once flourishing Khwarezmian Empire were taken and burned, their population massacred or sold as slaves. Samarkand, Bukhara, Tashkent, Nimruz, Ghazna, and many others whose name you probably never heard, but were until then important places, ceased to exist or became mere shanty towns. Sometimes, when they took a city, the entire captive population was forced to march to the next, where they were used as human shields from the arrows, and, once dead, the huge piles of bodies were used as ramps to climb the walls. Shah Aladdin, completely defeated, escaped to an island in the Caspian Sea, where the Mongols, who had never ventured to sail, left him alone to die a a few months later a broken man. This coin bears witness of these tragic hours. It was minted at the, until then, important city of Ghuzwan, still loyal to Alauddin Muhammad. Quite remarkably, it bears not only the Muslim year, but also the Muslim month of issue, Rabi II, 618. This is equivalent to June 1221, when the city was under Mongol siege. And now back to a coin, which may be quite less informative, but by no means less important. Mongols had never issued coin before, and this coin was undoubtedly produced by a local mint, probably Ghazna, or perhaps Khwarezm. The reference to the Caliph is thus meaningless, as Genghis was not a Muslim. Experts believe that these coins were minted with the only purpose to provide the captive population with a currency for which to sell their goods and pay the Khan to avoid their captivity, or even execution. And this may also have been the purpose of other similar issues, such as these other billion gitals attributed to the mint of Nimruz, of which I purchased a small hoard some years ago. They are so crude that I kept 4 of them to have the whole inscription deciphered. At Ghazna, gold dinars with the full title, The Great Khan, the Just, the Most Mighty Genghis Khan, were also minted. Genghis died on August 18, 1227, and soon before his death, he ordered the complete extermination of the Xixia people who had revolted in China while Genghis was in campaign in Khwarezm. The order was carried out completely soon after his death. Genghis' successors continued the expansion of the empire, which, by the time of his grandson Kubilai, who ruled from Beijing, covered 4/5 of the known world. By then, the Mongols had adopted the many currencies of the conquered countries, from cast coins and paper money in China to gold dinars, silver dirhams, and multiple dirhams in Persia, reintroducing coined money in Russia, where the Khujiits, also known as the Golden Horde, who were the descendants of Genghis' oldest son, ruled for several centuries. I told you this wasn't a nice story, but at least I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please let me know your ideas in the comment box below.